friends. Welcome to another episode of That Sounds Fun. I'm your host, Annie F. Downs. I'm so happy to be here with you today. Before we dive into today's conversation, I want to tell you about one of our incredible sponsors, AG1. Oh, I just realized I forgot to do my AG1 today. That explains some of the things I'm feeling. Y'all know I don't drink coffee. Can you imagine me on coffee? But I do drink AG1 in the morning, and it gives me an energy boost that I need, and there's no caffeine crash. I also know that I'm giving my body the nutrient support it needs to power through the rest of the day. My next stop is my kitchen to do. Oh, no, I did do it this morning. Okay, I feel better. AG1 contains prebiotics, probiotics, and gut-supporting ingredients to support your digestion, reduce bloating, and keep you, regular. I just mix one scoop of AG1 with really cold water, and I love to throw in some lemon juice too, some frozen lemon juice. This morning, now that I remember, I scooped in some of my hydration multiplier, drink it up, I'm good to go. So start with AG1 and notice the difference for yourself. It is a great first step to investing in your health, and that's why they've been a proud partner of ours for so long. Try AG1 and get a free bottle of vitamin D3, K2, and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase at drinkag1.com/soundsfun. That's a $48 value totally for free if you go to drinkag1.com/soundsfun. Check it out. Today on the show, my friend Alyssa Bethke is here, and you are in for a treat. While Alyssa's been on the show before with her husband, Jeff Bethke, this is her first time being on That Sounds Fun by herself, and I loved the conversation. Alyssa and her family recently moved here to Nashville from Maui, so we talk a lot about that transition and what that's been like, and then we dug into her latest book, When Doing It All Is Undoing You, which comes out tomorrow. You know I love having an author on here the day before their book comes out, and there are great pre-order bonuses if you go now to buy the book, on Monday, and then it arrives tomorrow. It's awesome. So I think you're really going to love this book and this conversation. So here's my conversation with my friend, Alyssa Bethke. That sounds fun. Alyssa Bethke, welcome back to That Sounds Fun.
Hi, Annie.
I am so glad you're here.
I'm so glad. I know. And I think every time we've been together, we've been in Hawaii.
That's exactly right.
So this is fun.
Yeah. Oh, you're exactly right. And this is your 4th episode on That Sounds Fun. This is your first solo episode, ma'am.
Oh.
Let's go. We don't need no Jeff Bethke. Yeah. It could just be you. Okay, tell everyone why we're getting to sit in the same room today.
Yeah, well, we just moved from Hawaii to Tennessee.
I cannot believe it.
Blowing my mind.
Yeah. Okay, what do you miss about Maui? Do you find yourself missing Maui?
I do. I think I miss Maui more than all my other family members.
Oh, interesting.
I think, Jeff is just so all or nothing. Wherever he's at, that's where he is,
Yeah.
Full send. And then my kids are so resilient, and but I think I definitely miss the beach and seeing the ocean.
Because y'all could see the ocean from your house.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And so I really miss that. And then I think I just miss familiarity. What is familiar, what your rhythms are, what, small town life. I really loved that part. So.
And y'all were there a long time.
Yeah. We were there 10 years.
Yeah.
And then I lived there 2 years before. So we were ready. I was ready to move on, but I definitely missed some things about it.
So on Maui, Lahaina is what burned last year, right? Mm-hmm. So how much did your Maui change after the fire? Did your Maui life change after the fire?
Yeah, I think it did. I mean, in one way it didn't in that, so we lived on the other side of the mountain, and if you've been to Maui, there's a valley in between and there's 2 mountains. So Lahaina was on one side of the mountain. So if you're on the other part, it's you actually don't feel like anything really changed. But it's really interesting because the fire started up by our house. We had to evacuate early that morning at 4 a.m. And so we weren't sure if our house was going to be there.
Right.
And then, a few hours later, we're just so naively was the smoke is going down. We don't see the flames anymore. Everything's going to be fine. And then later that afternoon, Lahaina had burned down. And so, but then I think it really affected Maui because a lot of people from Lahaina moved away. Yeah. And then all those people it's so interesting because if you've been there, that area is all the multi-generations. So it's people that have lived there for 100 years. Wow. They have their great-grandma in the same house as them, and locals that they don't really have insurance. And so all of a sudden they're misplaced. So they were all on the other side of the island. So it really shook things up. And then it really affected the economy of people losing their job, and the tourism was shut down for a while. And so So in one way, I feel like it totally changed. And I realized like it kind of cut Maui in half. Like you really couldn't go over there after.
Oh, for a while.
Yeah, for a long time.
Because there's only one road. People should know there is one road into Lahaina.
Right. And it's like once they opened it up for tourism to come, like in Kaanapali, you still drove by it all. So it definitely changed Maui.
Yeah, because it's still, my friend Angie who lives there is like, it's like not even cleaned up.
No.
It is just burned, an entire burned town.
Yeah.
That there's just no, and it's been over a year.
I know.
By a few days. It's been a year by a few days.
Yes, right. Yeah. And I mean, I think when everything had happened, Jeff followed all the news and stuff. And it was like in a normal, like not an island, it would take like a year to clean it all up. But then you think it's on an island. So where do you put all this stuff? It's just,
you can't just dump it in the ocean. You can't just brush it in the ocean with a broom. Yeah. That is, I'm making an assumption about you right now. That has got to be one of the best parts of moving to the mainland is you aren't on an island anymore. So the cost goes down and some problem solving things like that just must go down.
Yes. Like our minds are so blown that you can order food to your house. We're like, and we do Postmates, which people here are like, what's that? I think they do more Uber Eats.
No, I'm a Postmater.
Okay, when they send you that notification, like on a Thursday afternoon, they're like, tonight would be a great night to have Uber Eats. I'm like, yes, it would. I'm like, click. I don't want to cook tonight.
Y'all didn't have that at all in Maui?
No. I'm like, I love this part of the mainland.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. You're like, any restaurant in Nashville can come to my house.
Yes.
How did y'all end up here?
So, it's so funny. I had always said, since Jeff and I were married, the one place I would never move is Tennessee.
This is what literally the memory I have is you being like, oh, we'll never be in Tennessee.
Yeah, no.
But yes.
Like we had talked about.
I mean, not our one memory of our life, but the one memory of this conversation I have.
Right. And I think because I had felt like we grew up, we're both from Seattle, went to college in California. I'd always been on the coast. And so I was like, oh, I'd feel so landlocked. I would never move to Tennessee. And then last fall, I came out for a retreat. And fall in Tennessee. Yeah. I'm like, oh, I get it now. I get why everyone moves here. And then Jeff came a few weeks later for a conference. And he was with John Tyson and Darren from Church of the City. And they were like, you guys would love it here. You would thrive, like the church here and the community. And so it just kind of started like spinning our minds. But still, like we were Maui people for life.
Yeah.
And then Jeff had found... Well, anyway, and I think because what we do, Jeff's travel started to like really take a toll on our family. It was just, he would go for like a weekend, but really would be gone for a week because he's coming from Maui.
Yeah. Yeah, if he's going to go speak at a conference.
Right.
And whereas I leave Friday morning, speak Friday night, I'm back Saturday afternoon, he was leaving Thursday and coming back Monday.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we were like, I think it was just getting too much for our family. And he's mostly in Texas and New York. And so Nashville area just seemed very central.
Yeah.
And we know a lot of people here that do what we do and the community. So it just felt like a very soft landing.
I mean, it's been, how long have y'all been here? 3 months?
Since June.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have not laid eyes on each other.
No.
Because y'all's social calendar is as busy as anybody's. I mean, I know, my friends are like, oh yeah, I saw Jeff and Liz, and I saw Jeff. And I'm like, oh, they are fine. They have stepped into a full social calendar.
Yeah, no, especially Jeff. I'm like, babe, can we connect? Because you're like with all guys all the time. Like he had a pickleball thing last night, pickleball thing this morning.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that was not my experience when I moved here. But that is my experience a little bit in New York.
Okay.
I did step into, I already had a group of friends there.
Yeah.
And then once I stepped into a faith community and I already had some friends there, it was a really unique,
enfolding.
Yeah. That's a great word. Enfolding, where you go like, oh, I don't have to work as hard.
Yeah, right.
That's terrible because some of our friends who just moved are just sobbing in their car.
No,
and we're going to talk about the hard parts too.
I've experienced that too. Yeah.
Same.
But I feel like we talked to some friends from New York, and I could imagine because there's not a lot of believers there, that once you find your community, it's just like I don't know. Do you feel like that? Like you just stick together because you're like, oh my gosh, you love Jesus too. This is so awesome.
Yeah. I mean, one of my friends, Joe, when I told her where I live, she was like, oh, in the Bible Belt of New York. And I was like, really? She was like, yeah, all the Christians lived right there. I was like, well, that was an accident, but yeah, I did. I did move right there. So I didn't mean to. Talk about your experience of Southern. When you walked in the office, you and our coworker, Katie, started talking about it. I was like, save it for the pod, save it for the pod.
Yeah.
Because you're having a different experience being in the South with people of faith.
Yeah. I think I'm still adjusting. I was just saying how we've always been West Coasters. So we grew up in Seattle where it's like not cool to be a Christian in any way, shape, or form. Which part of that we loved. Like, you really know who people, just who your people are. And then Maui was it's more sleepy spiritually. And so it's funny because I feel like I'm Southern at heart. Like all my favorite shows are Southern. Like, Sweet Home Alabama. Gosh, just all the TV shows I love so much. And so when I moved here, I was like, oh, this is going to be great. Like, I'm so Southern at heart.
Yeah.
But then the more we live here, I'm like, oh, this is so different. And I think, like, when we go shopping, like, almost every boutique has Bible studies. And I'm like looking around, and I'm like, do people know these are in here? Like, this would never happen in Seattle.
Nor New York.
Oh, yeah.
We can't get them to carry one of your book, my book, Jeff's, probably
No.
Jeff. You and me, they nowhere in New York.
No, not even any of them.
Every clothing store here has 100 Days to Live.
So that's wild to me.
Yeah.
And then a huge thing, I was just talking to a girl today about neighbors. Like we immediately moved in. All our neighbors wanted to meet us. They all brought us sourdough bread. I'm like, this is unbelievable. Jeff had this huge shipment come in for he's like, whatever,
Always.
all in about his truck and camping. And
Got it.
So he tried to put the tent on top of his truck that's like, I don't know how many pounds, and he did an Instagram on it. And like 3 neighbors called him up. It was like, why didn't you call me to help you move that?
Oh, wow.
And I was like, that would never happen any place we've ever lived.
Yeah.
And so I think what they say about the South with like hospitality, it's a real thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I'm like learning new things of how to be neighborly, and so that part's really sweet.
Yeah. It is interesting. I mean, I was saying to you before, I heard John Tyson do a sermon, and he said it's easier to pastor in New York because everybody really has sacrificed to be. It is not culturally advancing at all in New York to be a believer.
Right.
Relationally, professionally, it is not. And that was true when I lived in Edinburgh. But down here, it actually can serve you.
That's true.
Professionally, for better and mostly for worse, probably.
Yeah.
So are you bumping into some of that yet of like, but I guess most of y'all's friends you've made, and you're in a real Bible-believing church, so you probably haven't maybe bumped into that as much yet?
I was just having a conversation with a friend who moved here recently from Florida, and she said the same thing. And I don't know if I've experienced it yet, but also I'm like, I haven't gotten out much. Like,
right. You've got children to raise, a book to launch, a house to set up.
Yeah, house. So I'm like, I need to get out and like actually be with people. But so I think that'll probably come a little more as we go. Yeah.
Okay, 3 months in. What is your favorite thing about Tennessee so far? You've been here when it is hot.
So hot.
Yeah, brutal. Do y'all have a pool?
Yeah, so that makes it good. Yeah. July did me in. I was like,
it's hard.
So we went to Florida for a week, and that was a great reset of like, okay, I just need to see the ocean, need to see the waves, feel a breeze. That was really nice.
have the wind blow.
Yes. I'm like, okay, I can do it.
Yeah, July this year has acted like August, and August has acted like September.
Okay.
So, it's been very bizarre how brutal July was.
Yes, it was so hot.
It's hotter than usual to me.
Yeah. Gosh, I think I just love the mornings, like with the sunrise and all the fields, and like we live out in the country. So we had lived in Vermont. Well, we're in Vermont for 6 weeks one fall, and I just fell in love with it. So every morning reminds me of Vermont.
Yeah.
I'm like,
do y'all still have the place in Vermont too?
We don't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so I almost feel like Franklin is like a better Vermont.
Yeah.
It's like,
sorry, Vermont. We're not talking directly to you.
It's still so magical in Vermont, but this is just, you like get all the beautiful things, and like literally every house is a Pinterest house.
I know.
So it's just like a lot of beauty to take in.
Yeah. Vermont is my 50th state. So it's the last one for me to hit.
Okay, that you've never been to?
I've never been to. It's my last one, and I'm going in October, and I can't wait. I'm going to check it off. I don't remember the name.
You in Woodstock?
No.
Okay.
I'm just driving from the city, from New York City. I'm just going up like 2 hours. I'm on a writing deadline. So I was like, I will drive out of the city. I will get a hotel and write for 2 days and tick off Vermont and just call it done.
October's perfect.
I know. That's what I thought is. I thought it'll be a great time to go. And it was great because it's a nicer hotel than I would choose to pay for.
Okay.
But it was 30% off because I booked in the summer, and then 10% off because it's after peak. So then I was like, well, now it's in my budget, and it's nicer than I can actually pay for, but it's in my budget when I booked it right. And so I can't wait to see it. I mean, just to say,
so
magical. It feels very Gilmore Girls-y.
Yes, it is literally. Okay, so when we were there, we stayed at Woodstock, which is like, we stayed outside on a farm, but Woodstock is literally Gilmore Girls. It's like Rockefeller family owned it, so everything's like really nice and kept up.
Yeah.
But literally the librarian, who was like a 40-year-old man, would be dressed like a Gilmore person, like the corduroy vest and the glasses.
Yeah.
And he would sit at the farmer's market in the like town square reading to all the children.
Oh my gosh.
While there's like music playing and there's hot apple cider donuts. I'm like, this is all my dreams come true. So you're going to love it.
I can't wait. Okay, so talk to us, because there are people listening who have moved in the last 3 months and it's been terrible.
Yeah.
And when I moved here, I mean, I cried a lot. I'm sure you've cried.
Yeah.
I've cried in New York and been like, what have I done? This was, my friends have probably heard me tell the story, but when I bought a desk and it just didn't go very well, I had to go get it. I bought it off Facebook Marketplace. It was a bad experience.
Okay.
By myself in New York in January.
Oh, yeah.
And so I did like wait outside for a friend to come help me in the cold because I didn't want. So I just stood there crying, being like, "You've brought this upon yourself. Your life didn't have to be this hard. You could have just stayed in Nashville. Why are you doing this?" Talk to the people who are doing the "Why did I do this?" moment.
Yeah.
Has God shown up for them, even if it doesn't feel like it? Talk about that in the move, because I'm sure you felt some of that.
Yes, totally. And I think that was a big fear moving. Like, am I gonna? Because I think when you're starting to move, there's so many things happening. It's so chaotic. You're making so many decisions. And so I was like, am I going to get there in 3 months to be like, what did we do?
Yeah.
Like, we made a huge mistake, you know? And that's why I think it's so important to then always go back and remember the story of how God moved in your heart to move there and why you moved there. And so for us, like, there was some big reasons we moved: for our family to be together more, for opportunities for our kids. And so it's like, even in the hard, it's like, I know that we're here. Like, God has moved us here. He's answered these prayers that I've been praying for 4 years that never like happened in Maui.
Wow.
And then and that, even though there's been difficulties with moving, and any move is hard. Like, I think I realized, like, it's a transition. Your whole world is upside down. There's like, you're developing new rhythms and what feels familiar and meeting. And I think the hardest part is when you're looking for community. That just takes so long to develop deep relationships. But then to see, like, no, God has been so faithful. And when we moved here, literally within 1 week, he answered some of those big, like, prayers, a church home. And I'm like, I feel like I've been, like, homeless and hungry for a church for so long. Like, things for our daughter that were just so amazing. Like, Lord, you just immediately provided that. And so I think going back and remembering why you moved, even if those prayers haven't been answered yet, knowing that, like, God is with you. It's so interesting when you tell about that. I'm like, the Israelites were on the move all the time, you know, and like transition and being in places that weren't home and people that didn't love the Lord and just constantly going back and remembering, this is our God, this is who he is. He parted the Red Sea. And so I think just if you're in that transition place, thinking, okay, how has God been faithful in the past? And he will be faithful now. And then I think moving takes so much courage, like opening up yourself up, meeting new people.
Yeah, because I'm imagining you're still going to make friends that you didn't already have. Of course you are. You're going to meet new people. Yeah.
And it's so funny. I went to lunch with a friend that I'd never met, just like an online friend last week. And I was so nervous. And I'm like, here I am, 36. And I feel like I'm going on a date. And I'm like, well, we have things to talk about, you know, all these things. And it was like the best lunch date. Like, I just loved her and it was so fun to talk. And so... And I remember when we moved to Maui, there was things like that, and it didn't go well. I'm like, ooh. Or like you get so brave and you ask somebody to meet for something, and they can't. And you just feel this rejection over and over. And so for me, back then, it was like the one-on-ones were really scary. So for me, it was easier to invite a bunch of people. And like one of my favorite things we did, which I was even thinking about doing here to meet some new people, was a favorite things party.
Yes.
Which I think we've talked about before, where you ask these people to come, you know, snacks, dessert, whatever. And they each think of something that is their favorite thing. It could be like 5 things or one thing, bring 5 of it. That's like $10 or under.
Yeah.
And then you all go around and you just say why you brought your favorite thing. And then, anyway, you can like look it up on Pinterest, but then 5 people get your favorite thing. Yeah. So you come away with all it. But then you get to know people and it's like real low bearing fruit. Like you can be vulnerable, but you're not super vulnerable. It's just like, hey, I love this water bottle, you know,
that's
or
right.
whatever.
That's right.
Yeah.
Talk about the difference. I don't know this because I don't have kids. What's the difference of making new friends when you also have kids trying to make friends?
Yes. So I think that is a lot harder.
Yeah.
One thing I realized that's been my biggest prayer moving here, is that my kids would make friends. And that sometimes feels more vulnerable of like, Lord, like help them be brave. Please provide friends. And then can their friends also have like parents that I enjoy that we can be friends? Because I feel like Jeff and I are doing well with friends here because a lot of people here we already knew and, all that. So we easily assimilated in, but then really praying for friends for my kids. So, and I am an introvert. And so like when my kids meet someone on the playground, like when they were little, going up to the other parent and talk to them was like my worst nightmare. I'm like, I'll just sit here and read.
Let me read my book.
I'll just read. It'll be fine.
Yes.
But so I think that is like a harder dynamic of, you need friends and then your kids need friends and prayer. And sometimes God answers right away. And then like my best friend moved a year ago and her older son has no friends. And so it's like, it's almost like your heart is almost out, like, Lord, will you please provide friends for my kids and really teaching them how to be brave. So, yeah. I'm
not a parent, but I'm certainly a helicopter aunt. And I'm a helicopter village member for my friends with kids.
Yeah.
And my nephew, I have said to my sister multiple, like, does he have friends? Who are the friends? Like, I need to know their names. I need to like be able to talk about Sarah and talk about Brad. Talk about the kids that are friends. And so I just think, man, I haven't parented, but I have gotten a small taste of like what it feels like that your heart is like over there, existing, and you're like, oh, what do I? Are they okay?
Right.
What are we going to do?
And then I was just talking to a friend, sometimes it's like hard not to project onto them. Like if that was a certain season of your life where it was hard to have friends and your child's actually doing fine, but you're like, are you okay? Are you making friends? Are you talking to anyone at school? You're like, no, that's not like, good for you. Like, So.
Also, all three of your kids are the most fun. So I would imagine
that
they've done well at school.
Yeah, actually, Cannon is like at a birthday party right now. He's so stoked.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, they are all just... they are very kind, and that is caught and taught from y'all. So they're very kind.
Annie.
They're easy to be around.
Yeah.
And I have another incredible partner to tell you about, Shopify. Did y'all know in our AFD Week in Review that we send out on Fridays that we typically highlight what is on sale in our merch store each week so you can shop our best deals? Shopify is the reason we can do things like that and bring you t-shirts and tank tops and sweatshirts. Looking at you, Single Purpose League, your sweatshirts are coming. Nobody does selling better than Shopify. They're home to the #1 checkout on the planet. And they have Shop Pay that boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales. So if you're into growing your business, make sure your commerce platform is ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling, on the web, in the store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more sell on Shopify. So upgrade your business and get the same checkout we use at shop@anniefdowns.com. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/soundsfun, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/soundsfun to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/soundsfun. That link and pretty much every other link you could ever hope for are in the show notes, and we will send them in that Friday AFD Week in Review email. You can sign up for that as well in the show notes. So don't miss that. It's one of the best things we do. Okay, now back to our conversation with Alyssa. Okay, so did you leave your parents in Maui?
No, they came with.
They came with. So did they move with y'all as well into the same area?
They moved like 10 minutes away from us.
Great.
So, and you know what is so wild? So my dad is a total surfer, grew up in Southern California. His dream come true was living in Maui.
Yeah.
And I thought for sure they would never move.
Yeah.
And then when they said yes, I was like, they're going to resent us because they're going to get here and be like, what did we do? And they are loving it more than, like, they're having an easier time adjusting than I am.
Wow.
And so it's just been really sweet. I feel like they just love it here. My mom's like, it already feels like home. And my mom's like so much more extroverted than me. She'll be like at the park and she's like, oh, hey, I love your hair. And they're like, she's going on a walk with them. I'm like, you're amazing.
I mean, it's just will you talk for a second about, I mean, y'all had to sell a house and find a house that worked for your life, which y'all, Jeff and you both have a pretty big vision for what your home is to be.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about God's faithfulness in that, because there've got to be friends of ours listening. I think about this a little bit about if I ever wanted to move in Nashville to a neighborhood where I could walk a little bit more like I do in New York. talk about how God has been faithful in y'all finding a place to live.
Okay, so this is actually a really crazy God story. And that is why we're here. So basically, Jeff, he's always on Zillow, always like looking at everything, even though we had never wanted to move. And he had this crazy travel season. He was in Texas, I was in San Diego, and he sends me this Zillow of this house in Franklin. And I was like, oh, that's nice. Why are you sending me this house?
Yeah.
So then I look at it again, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like my dream home. It's like, I love it. Like everything about it is so amazing. It was coming on the market. It wasn't for sale yet.
Wow.
And that's actually what spurred on, not that, but it just had us start talking of like, should we move? Why would we move? Yeah, all that stuff. So we decided to move within like an hour. It was just like a crazy...
Over the phone?
Over texting.
Dude.
My husband
that
was...
is beyond.
It is beyond. But I will say, with people that are listening are like, this will never happen to me. I will say we had other things, a very big thing actually, that we had like disagreed about for like a year. And that the Lord was really like bringing us together on. And so this was so refreshing to just immediately like be on the same page, like-minded, yes, let's do it.
You're like, oh yeah, we do still agree sometimes.
Yes, we do.
Okay. Got it.
And so anyway, so then we're like, okay, we're going to move. He starts going crazy with research of all the places to move to and like houses. And because he kind of had written this one off. He's like, oh, I don't know if we could. It was a beautiful home, but like the place we had in Maui had a place for my parents and a barn for like a business. And we just really wanted to host a lot of people. Yes. And he wasn't sure if we'd be able to do that here. So anyway.
So almost like that particular house at the moment just started the yes.
Yes, the yes. So a couple weeks go by and I text him, I'm like, oh, my dream house is on the market today. Yeah. And I'm like kind of dying inside, like, okay, I'll surrender to this. And we start talking, and I'm like, and he was like, another house he really liked. He loved the yard. And I was like, whose yard I love, who I'd never seen the house, never been to their house, but I was like, Rebecca Lyons.
They do
her yard.
It's
I'm
so
like,
pretty.
it is so amazing.
Yeah.
So he texts them, and he said, hey, where do you guys live? Are any of your neighbors selling their house? Like, ha, 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 She sends us where they live, and she goes, actually, my backdoor neighbor is selling her house. It just went on the market today. So I pull it up, and it, sure enough, is my dream home. Yeah. So I'm just dying laughing, because one of our biggest prayer requests was that we would have good neighbors in a good neighborhood. Yes. And so that Jeff starts to be like, well, maybe we should consider this house. He was in Arkansas at the time. And I was like, can you just drive up and like after your retreat and just see it? Because I'm already sold. I don't need to see it. If you see it and say yes or no, it'll be whatever. I fully trust you. So he drives up that day and immediately going in the neighborhood, he's like, this is our house. And so, but we couldn't afford it. Because we had to sell our house first,
Sure.
And this house that was selling, they didn't want to do a contingent offer because they had one go terribly wrong. And so you have to have hard cash. And so,
oh no, that makes my stomach hurt.
Right?
Liz.
So, and maybe I should say all this on the podcast. But anyway, he basically has these friends, and he calls his friend who's in finances, and he's like, I think I know a few people that could help you out. I'll get back to you tomorrow. Yeah. He calls back within 10 minutes and says, I found a friend, I'm not going to say who, that is willing to put up the money for you. Go for it.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. And so, it's just such a God story. So we end up getting this house, and that's the house we're living in.
Oh,
and it's
my gosh.
Neighbors with Rebecca.
Knew the Rebecca. I know.
Yeah.
Part. Oh my gosh.
But yeah.
The Lord just uses other people.
And so generous. So it was just very humbling.
And then it just allowed you to sell the Maui house to.
Right. Yeah. And then that story is so cool. I'll make it quick because I know we're talking about other things. So we put up our house. We actually hadn't even put our house up for sale in Maui. These friend of a friend came from Bend. They put an offer on a house, and then our other friends were like, hey, you should check out the Bethke house because they want to do retreats, which is kind of why we had bought our Maui house. We wanted to do retreats, but we were also living there, so it was a little trickier. They come, they're like, this is our dream home. And so they bought our house.
That view out your kitchen is a dream view.
It was beautiful. So they bought the house, they live there part-time, and then they're going to host all these retreats. So it's actually being used more for what we had dreamed of than when we lived there. And they're an incredible family, love the Lord, so cool. So it's just God's hand all over it. Yes. So we really did feel like the Lord was like ushering us.
And the Lions have a great
Tennessee.
garden. I bet you, has she handed you, and she makes
I was
sourdough.
just eating her cucumber today.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is the best cucumber I've ever
I know,
had.
they grow so many things. They make so many things. Yeah.
Yes, I know.
That is great to be next to them. I just keep thinking if the world ever, like, if we get the big warning that things aren't going well in the world,
yes.
100% I'm going to Gabe and Rebecca.
Yes, 100%.
I am joining y'all's compound in a heartbeat. I don't know my job. I don't know how I can be helpful. But I mean, I guess I can still teach school. So I could still teach your children.
Yes, yes.
And I'm joining the compound given the need.
Yes. Well, so because our other neighbors have a farm that they like raise all the cattle and all the things. So one morning we were eating their breakfast sausage with Rebecca's eggs and sourdough.
Yeah.
And I was like, I need to have something to bring to the table. Like, I just have like our puppy. Like, I don't know what I have.
We're fine. We have the little kids.
We're fine. We have little kids.
Yeah, you're going to have to start contributing to the compound.
I know. Well, the problem is in Maui, I had all these, you see all the homesteaders.
Yeah.
So I'm like, we tried chickens, we had cats, we had all these like plants and all the things. And I failed at everything. So I was like, I think it's not for me.
Yeah.
I'm fine buying Costco eggs. That's okay.
Right. That's right. That's right. But I'm telling you, in a world, there comes a day.
Yes.
That's going to be the place to live. Everybody's going to wish they had y'all's backyard neighbors.
Yeah, I know.
Because I think Rebecca's going to be one who feeds
everybody.
A lot of us for a long time.
I know. I think so too.
I'm very grateful.
I'll just pray over everybody.
Yeah, that's it. Hey,
that's my contribution.
If there is a person who I know the Lord hears when you pray, it is you. That is 100% true. I'm thinking about your new book that comes out tomorrow when everybody's hearing this. When Doing It All is Undoing You. I mean, this is a wildly perfect timed book because you have had to do it all. You had to move your entire family across an ocean. Mm-hmm. And do you feel like you're still held together? Did you fall apart a little bit? Was it too much for you? Were you like reliving what you had written?
100%. And do you feel like this with a book? Like you live something, you write it, and then you live it all again when it comes out?
It's the worst.
Yes. Yeah. So anyone who's like behind any scene of author, just know that they're like living the story two times.
Yeah. Two times. That's right.
And like the second is like usually harder and deeper.
Yeah.
100%. I will say though, when I, the first time I experienced it, I really was a mess. Like in the most beautiful sense, because I think God really invites us in when we come undone He really wants to be our healer and the one that puts us back together. But I was like melting down, not emotionally healthy, really like I had neglected my heart for so long. And then the Lord really brought me on a journey of a lot of healing, a lot of like, how do I connect to Him? How do I be honest? How do I invite mentorship into my life? All these things. And so the last like 4 months, I have felt very undone. I mean, we moved. We're like sailing to a new home. My husband started to travel a lot. We get this puppy that I'm like, isn't even my idea, but somehow I'm taking care of. And my book's coming out and I'm in school and I'm like.
Wait, you're in school too?
Yes.
Are you doing the Denver Seminary group?
No, I'm at Western.
Oh,
so I have 1 semester left.
Oh my gosh.
Which is.
That's insane.
Yes. And so in a lot of ways. And 3 children.
Yes.
And I think just, helping them adjust, all the things.
And your parents moving here and your friend moving here. And
yes. And so
that is a lot.
I have felt very undone, but in a much more secure way of like, I'm actually getting, instead of feeling like I'm totally coming apart at the seams, I feel like, I'm getting to really live out what I wrote and know and really like it's so interesting. I was talking to my friend Sarah Haggerty.
Yeah.
And I was just telling her, like, every time a book comes out, I feel like it's spiritual warfare of like, I'm having to live this again.
Yeah.
Which I think that's totally part of it. But she was like, it's actually such a grace of God that you get to relearn and experience this, to know the material so much deeper, to be able to give it away to people.
Yeah.
And so I'm really grateful that I feel like I'm actually living what I've learned and know to be true.
Yeah.
And being able to apply it of when I feel like this is so overwhelming,
Yeah. I think I was saying before you got here to the team, I think this is such a well-timed book because I think September, everybody gets sad after Labor. Not everybody. I'm going to say everybody. Everybody gets sad after Labor Day because it's like, oh man, summer's over and the fun, it's okay, we're settling into our rhythms. And I think Instagram can say everyone else has figured out how to make their house smell like fall.
Yes.
And how they're baking bread and how everything is apples and they're doing these beautiful photo shoots on the weekends.
Yeah.
But my life, I feel like I'm falling apart.
Yeah.
Or it feels like too much. I can't keep up with all the papers that the kids are bringing home.
Yes.
And we haven't made dinner this week. And I haven't even thought about decorating my house because much less work out or walk 10,000 steps or whatever.
Yeah.
And so will you talk to the women who are listening, and probably dudes too, who think like, am I the only one who feels like this is too much?
Yeah.
Is my capacity lower than everybody else's?
Gosh, yeah. That is such a good... I love that you said that, because even as you're saying it, I'm like, me. I feel... And you know what is so... I just feel like the culture we're living in is Nike. Like, just do it.
Yeah.
You have all these opportunities, and then often the opportunities become pressures and expectations. Like, well, you should be able to do it. You should be able to have your kids in school and looking beautiful and have a well-decorated house with homemade bread and like all the things that you're saying. And so then we start to feel like, well, I'm not enough because I can't do all the things. And we never talk about limitations. We never talk about, our actual capacities.
Yeah.
And I think it's very human to want to do it all, to want to please people, to want to experience it all.
Yeah.
And to just like I want to know the 5 steps to be able to be successful.
Yeah.
And a beautiful prayer that I've started to pray is, Lord, will you increase my capacity for you? Like, instead of increasing my capacity to do all the things or feel like I'm falling behind, what I really want, Lord, is to be full of your Spirit that actually gives me the power to do what you've called me to do. And granted, we need to know then what it is that God is calling us to do and what he isn't calling us to do. Because I think a lot of times we live thinking we need to do so much more than what God is actually asking of us.
That's good.
But when we hear him and we know what he's calling us to in a season, asking him, Lord, will you fill me with your Spirit and capacity for you so then I can be the person you want me to be in this season. So, man, I just think it's so... I was just talking to my counselor yesterday.
Did you find one here? Or do you
I've had the same guy. He lives in Kansas City.
Oh, cool.
And he does Zoom.
Great.
So it was like, I just always love talking to him. But I was talking about 2 completely different pains in my life.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, well, actually, it's like the same root thing. And he's like, it's that feeling of like, you're not enough.
Wow.
And I just was like, gosh, I'm like, am I going to feel that forever? And it's just like, yes, that's exactly it. I feel like and in that instance, it's not so much keeping up with the Joneses, but it's like, I feel like I can't please this person, or I can't stop the pain for this person, or stop the pain for myself. And so then I feel like I can't, I should have all the shoulds, all the shame talk comes in.
Yeah.
And really just being like, he was like, just be so generous with like who you are and what you can bring to the table, and really seeking like letting God's love be enough for whatever it is. Like, that maybe the suffering won't end. And the reality is there's part truth there. Like, you won't be enough. Like, you're not going to be able to do it all or say yes to all or please all. But like really being secure in God's love and having that be enough. So I know that can feel like, oh, that sounds so Christianese, but like when you really are faced with pain and the feeling of not enough, to really rest in that, even if I did nothing today, God would still delight in me because I am his child. I'm so bad at that.
I mean, I know you know this about me, but I am so bad at that. I just do not, even when whenever I've had surgeries, and I was home for one day by myself, and then I was like, okay, let's go. Like, what we are accomplishing nothing sitting here. And then what I have to say to myself is like, no, sometimes like you only heal when you sit still.
Yeah, that's so good. Annie.
Right? Like our bodies actually only heal when they are still, when they're supposed to be. Now, there's the other side of like, when you have to get better, you have to start moving and you have to start walking and all these things. But I'm very much like, okay. I mean, I literally woke up and said, are we done? Yeah. And they were like, yeah. And I was like, let's go. They were like, go home and sit on your couch. Yeah. But I want to rush the healing, and I don't want to sit at all. Totally. And I'm curious as you're talking, if somewhere in me it is why can't you? Yeah. Why can't you sit? Is it because you think it's not valuable use of your time?
Yes. Yeah. Dallas Willard has a great quote, which I'm sure you know. He said, it's not about the accomplishments we achieve, but it's about the person we're becoming. And I think that I just go back to all the time, because I think I always thought it's about what I can do, what I can check off, what I can like actually give to people.
Yeah.
Instead of realizing that, no, my transformed self and my presence is actually a healthy, whole, holy person is actually the greatest gift I can give to people.
Yeah.
Versus like what I can achieve. And okay, this is so great because I know you have so many mentors in your life and people you look up to. And I was thinking about this. I was like, the people that I look up to the most that have been most impactful to my life, it's not because of their resume, but it's because of the person they are when they're with me.
Yeah, that's right.
And they may have great resumes, like amazing people.
Yeah.
But what has impacted me is when they can sit and they actually listen and are present and not distracted. They pray for me. They're like listening what the Holy Spirit would want to say to me in that time. They're checking in later of like, hey, how's this going? Let me pray for you. Though that's the person I want to become. And that's actually the greatest gift that I've been given from other people, more than what they can accomplish, what they can like write off, what they can show for what, they did in a day or in a season. But it is, I think it's so human to want the accomplishments instead of rest. It's easier. Like we see the fruit. That's why we love 10,000 steps. Because we're like, great, I did that today. Like, check it off.
That's right.
It's so much harder to sit and check in with your heart and like connect with God and there not necessarily be any fruit right away.
Yeah, that's right. I think one of the gifts you offer in this book is it's a little bit of a you kind of are like two waves crashing us on both sides at the same time a little bit. Because one of them is you are enough. Like you're enough. Like you can, this life, everything, you can handle what's been given to you. And the other side is you're also going to be disappointed. Yeah. And and what are you going to do when the world feels, I mean, do you feel like I'm summarizing this well? This was my experience. This was my experience in your book. Is not only do you fall apart when it feels like there's too much, you fall apart when you don't get what you want.
Yes. Yeah.
And when those two things are happening at the same time, when you've packed your family and moved to a new city and the kids don't have friends.
Yes.
When you have given your all to a work thing and it does not work and your marriage is falling apart.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's kind of like the world is too big and my life is too hard.
Yes.
Puts together is kind of what you wrote about.
Yes. I think it was so important. I think because when you grow up, I grew up, in the church, like knew the Bible, loved the Lord. And I think, and now that I'm in my late 30s, it's like you kind of start to think like if I do something the right way, if I follow the formula, if I, then I'm promised and assured this life. If I save myself for marriage, I'm guaranteed to be married or whatever those things are.
Yeah.
If I disciple my kids, I'm guaranteed that they'll follow Jesus.
Right.
And I think somewhere in your 30s, you kind of realize like, that's not always true. They're great principles. Yeah. And obviously we want to follow Jesus. His way is so much better. But we are going to have disappointments. Yeah. And for me, I had so many disappointments and I just didn't know what to do with them. Of like, and you know what? Have you read Sacred Fire by Ronald Rolheiser?
No, but it's the one about second half of life, right?
Well, it's talking about like kind of, yes, about discipleship. How there's two. There's the essential discipleship where like when you start walking with the Lord, the first half, it's like he said this great line about you spend so much of that time fighting with the devil, the lust, the temptations, and then your second half, the mature discipleship, is you're fighting with God. And I think we don't talk about that a lot. Yeah. And so we get to this time in our 30s where the disillusionment comes in because we're like, we start wrestling like, well, God, are you good? Yeah. Are you really true? Yeah. I did all these things and this isn't happening. So, and I think I realized, the story in the Old Testament where Jacob wrestles with God. Yeah. I've always hated that story. I was like, really? It doesn't make sense to me, Lord, like how irreverent, like it just, And I realized I'm so grateful that story's in there because it shows that we have permission to wrestle with God and to go through the night, through your dark night of the soul, through the darkest disappointments you have, through the parts where you're like, Lord, where are you? I thought you were going to do this. Yeah. Until you get to morning and until you see the goodness of God. And you'll probably come away with a limp, but like you will have met with God and he is so faithful that he will meet with you and he will meet you in your disappointment. And I think in the church, especially for women, I just don't think we are taught a lot to be honest with ourselves or with God. We think, gosh, Lord, I know I have so much to be thankful for. I can't admit this disappointment or like, why didn't you come through with me, for me in this way? Yeah. But then we just stay stuck. And God already knows it anyway. Right, and so when we actually can admit it to ourselves and admit it to God and then go through the wrestling with him, we come away so much more whole, knowing God. And I think often we want the answer, and he doesn't always give us the answer, but he always gives us himself.
Yes.
And that's actually what we're really longing for.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was like such a big part of my story, but so much of what I wanted to give away in this book to women, to like be honest with your disappointments and that God will meet you there. And actually the thing you're longing for most is him.
I went to a Church of the City campus on Sunday because a friend of mine was preaching for the first time.
Okay.
And so I went to hear him teach, and he was talking about his mom, and he said he had an accident, was in the hospital and was dying, my friend. And the mom was in the chapel at the hospital. And he said she grabbed hold of God and would not let go.
Yes.
And
I love that.
And in this particular story, he survived. There are friends of ours listening who grabbed hold of God and did not let go, and and the person or the relationship or the job or the whatever does not survive.
Yeah.
So, as you said, one does not guarantee the other.
Right.
But that visual to me of she grabbed hold and wouldn't let go,
I love that.
I was like, oh, I probably need to grab hold and not let go about some things, because I think I think in a attempt to be at peace, I've also let go.
Yeah.
And maybe there are times where we can grab back a hold and go, I'm not sure I'm done talking about this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you heard of Lucy Shaw?
I've only heard of her. I don't know her.
Okay. I'm not totally done with it, but she's mostly a poet. I think she's really good friends with Madeleine L'Engle.
Yes.
Okay. So Lucy writes mostly poetry, but I recently got a book, I think, called Water My Soul. So she did they did a whole series. Eugene Peterson is like my favorite like person in the world. And they had like this friend group, and they all wrote these stories to like equip the church. And so hers is called Water My Soul. And she was such a gardener, which I don't relate to at all. I keep thinking, I should get this for Rebecca. I think she would really like it. And it was so good, though, about like spiritual formation and the person we become and all this. But she said towards the end, and I know that maybe I say this and the listeners will be like, well, of course. But it was so monumental to me, where she said, we will never on this side of heaven ever stop longing. Like no matter what answered prayers you get or you don't get, you always will have longing that is never fulfilled, but it's always fulfilled in Jesus. Wow. And that longing is actually a gift from the Lord to constantly be this invitation to come to God, to be dependent on Him. And I think so often we want the answered prayer when really, the gift is that it's constantly an invitation to like depend on God.
That's a thing we talk to our Single Purpose League, our singles group. We talk a lot about when you get this thing, you will want something else.
Yes. Yeah.
Like we are just wanters. You and I both ate breakfast and probably lunch, and we will still want dinner.
Do you ever have like in a fast or whatever, you're like, or diet culture, you're like, I will be so content after this lunch. I won't eat till tomorrow. And then you're like 4 p.m. You're like, I'm starving.
Listen, I'm never more hungry than the minute I finish the meal before a fast.
Yes.
That is when a fast is about to start, I am certain I'll never eat again. And it is, I need to eat everything right now.
Right.
But and so it is I've never really written about it, but I want to at some point, about this idea of like, we just need to, as humans, learn how to want well.
Yeah.
Because we are going to want forever. I mean, maybe she's already done it. Lucy Shaw. I need to read Water My Soul. Hey friends, just interrupting this conversation one more time to tell you about one of our incredible partners, Factor. Y'all, Factor has become a staple in our refrigerator at the office because we grab them for super easy lunches. They are so good. Seriously, me, Ashley, Lily, and Katie, we all talk about which ones are our favorites, how we don't understand. Literally, it feels impossible how good they are. They are so good. They're prepackaged meals that aren't frozen. You just heat them up for like 2 minutes and you are ready to go. We literally, hand to heaven, have not found one that we do not like. I've tried their smoothies too, and they are really good. You can choose from a weekly menu of 35 options, including popular options like Calorie Smart, Keto, Protein Plus, or Vegan and Veggie. Plus, there's 60 add-ons every week, like breakfast or on-the-go lunch, snacks, and beverages like the smoothies I mentioned. So you have a ton to choose from. Head to factormeals.com/TSF50 and use the code TSF50 and you're going to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off the next month. The code again is TSF50 at factormeals.com/TSF50. to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. And now back to finish up our conversation with Alyssa. Okay, so someone picks up this book tomorrow. Oh, for starters, there's pre-order stuff still today, right?
Oh, yes.
I love when we have the Monday people on before the Tuesday because I'm like, get your goods, get your goods.
Yes.
Okay, so what's the pre-order stuff that goes away like tomorrow?
Yes. So they're actually so good. So the one is in the book. After each chapter, I have spiritual practices.
Amazing,
because I was like, obviously we want to know things, but then you have to put it into practice. And a lot of these ones are more about the mind and heart. You know, there's obviously so many. It's just dipping your toe in spiritual practice. But we made a whole journal about those. So we like summarize each chapter, then we ask questions, and we have tons of journal space. And so that is a free PDF. It's just really helpful to, if you're really excited about the material and you're like, okay, how do I actually apply this? That is a great thing to do. Another PDF that we're offering is called a heart exploration. So I think a lot of us, you know, I had a whole framework in the book about our hearts and why they matter. I think a lot of times we neglect our heart. We just stuff things, numb things. A lot of times we try to earn heart by like control and ease. And then we often lose heart with disappointments. But God wants to give us fullness of heart. And so we made this like 10-page PDF to kind of just talk about like, what is the heart? Why does it matter? How does it work? And then to ask these very simple, kind of more just easy to enter questions of how to actually check in with your heart. Because I think for me, that was my journey of like, well, how do I even know what's going on in there? How do I be curious? How do I ask the right questions? And so there's just like really simple questions that you could go through once, or you could do weekly, of just how to like check in and see how you're doing.
What people are saying about this book, Annie F. Downs says, this book is a necessary read for every woman wondering when it will get easier and if that is even possible. Thank God for the words of this book reminding us what is possible with God. That is how I felt when I finished reading it.
Oh, thanks, Annie.
It's 100% how I felt.
It's like you're a writer or something.
No,
so well
it's
said.
like I know how to blurb. Okay, so we'll make sure to link to this today so everybody can go find all the pre-order things because my ordering on Mondays are my favorite because you get the book tomorrow because Amazon has it sitting there, so you're not waiting 6 months. But you also got all the pre-order goodies, so I think that's very good. Is there anything we didn't say about the book that you want to, or about you that you want to make sure we say today?
Oh, about me?
About the book, about life? Is there anything?
No, I think we covered a lot of it.
I think so too. Okay, so we got to ask you, because the show is called That Sounds Fun.
Yes.
What are you doing for fun right now?
I was actually thinking about this in the bathroom before I came in. I'm like, Annie will ask this question. Okay, so Jeff and I are big pickleball people.
Yeah, welcome to the town. I mean, I think the world's doing it, but Nashville's really doing it.
Okay, well, it started where we're from. So we grew up playing it in middle school and high school, like for PE.
Wow.
And I don't know if you know this yet, but Jeff was a collegiate athlete, he's just really athletic.
Yeah.
And so here I am, I date this guy, I marry this guy, and I have all these dreams of like, we're going to play catch together. And he never did anything. He was like, I refuse to do any of that. So a couple years ago, we started playing pickleball together.
Yeah.
Because I used to be a tennis player.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, you're actually fun to play with. You're actually good. And he said, he's like, I never played anything with you before because I didn't think you would be good enough. And it would be, and because he's so competitive.
Oh, right.
And that it wouldn't be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's been so good for our marriage. We love pickleball. And we used to have a pickleball court in Maui.
Yeah.
And we don't here. And so now he's doing a lot with all his guy friends, which I love.
Are he and Carlos Whitaker playing together yet?
Yes, he just did the other day. Yes. But I'm missing playing pickleball. Yeah. And so what sounds fun to me is like a date with him playing pickleball.
Yes.
Yeah.
I need to get into it. Apparently it is the way you meet people right now if you're single. Like
what a great way to meet people.
It is like get off the apps and get on the pickleball court. That is what everyone is saying. Have you played at
Central Park yet?
No.
Well, no, because you haven't played.
Yeah,
okay.
Right. I've only played 2 times. I've played both times here.
Okay.
I've never been very good at tennis. I was a soccer player my whole life, so I'm much better at
your feet,
foot-eye coordination than hand-eye coordination.
Yeah.
So I'm a little embarrassed to try, but I'm kind of like, I mean, everybody seems to love it.
Yes. And you know what? I think it's actually a very like easy sport to learn and quickly be good at.
Yeah. Are y'all going to put a court in at your house? I'm sure.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we're just wondering if we should do like indoor, outdoor. But
oh my gosh, an indoor one?
I know, because we're like, well, it's really hot here in the summer.
There is no one, I know it's you too, but there is technically no one who dreams up things like Jeff Bethke.
Oh, it's yes.
I know that you're built like that some too, but he is built like let's do an indoor court in our yard and we'll put it in between our house and the Lions.
Exactly.
I just hear,
yeah. He's already invited people.
Yeah. For sure. That is a really good answer. Okay, next time y'all really play.
I'm going to invite you.
Yes, let me come. I need to at least see Jeff and the kids anyway. I haven't even seen any of y'all yet since you got here.
I know.
So now that everyone's settled,
yes,
I want to come down and see the spot.
Yeah, that'd be so fun.
Thanks for doing this today.
Thanks so much,
and thanks
Annie.
for this
It's fun
book.
to hang out.
My gosh, I just can't wait for people. It was a real gift to me when I got to read it. So thank you for letting me read it.
That means so much.
Yeah, I love you, friend.
Love
Glad
you
you're here.
Too.
Oh, you guys, don't you love her? Don't you love her? She's just the kindest. So go grab your copy of When Doing It All is Undoing You. It is out tomorrow. And remember, go to Alyssa's social media and get a hold of those pre-orders. Listen, go get them. If you order the book today, you still get it tomorrow, but you get all the pre-orders. And make sure you tell Alyssa thanks so much for being on the show when you're over there. If you enjoyed this episode, I think you'll also really love our 2019 couples episode with Alyssa and her husband, Jeff Bethke, or episode 910 with Megan Fate Marshman. Y'all are loving that episode. If you have not listened, go back. If you have any questions from this episode, you can drop them in the Q&A box in your Spotify app if you're a Spotify listener, or send them to us on Instagram at That Sounds Fun Podcast. We'll try to answer them there. If you need anything else from me, you know I'm embarrassingly easy to find. Annie F. Downs on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, anywhere you may need me, that's how you can find me. And I think that's it for me today, friends. Go out or stay home. Do something that sounds fun to you, and I will do the same. Okay, today what sounds fun to me is tomorrow night's Single Purpose League live stream. It's our chapter meeting. It is the most fun. You've got to join. If you are not married today, you are very welcome in Single Purpose League. Just go to singlepurposeleague.com. You're going to love it. Big night tomorrow night. Y'all have a great week. We'll see you back here on Thursday with one of my longtime dearest friends, Lindsay Rush, or better known on the internet as Mary Oliver's drunk cousin. She's here on Thursday to talk about her new book of poetry, A Bit Much. We'll see y'all then. Well, we'll see y'all tomorrow at the Single Purpose League live stream, but then we'll see y'all back here on the pod on Thursday.
That sounds fun. That sounds fun. Oh, that sounds fun. Check 1, 2 on the microphone. Annie F. Downs in your car to your home. Every week it's something new. A deep talk or an interview. She'll make you laugh, she'll make you cry. When it's dark out, she's a light.